Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Ray LaRue, and I'm excited to welcome you to the session today, How to Ace the 2025 Digital Assessments. This is a rapidly changing part of the consulting recruitment process. And we are super grateful, first of all, for all of you who have shared your experiences this year. A lot of this is up to date as of like we're hearing stuff yesterday. And so we are really excited to share it with you, and we will continue to update that information. But I think you're going to find a lot of the things, as I have, as we've learned about this process, very insightful. And everyone's always looking for shortcuts, but maybe even more importantly, for the sure thing. And I think that we're going to help to get you, if not through a shortcut, on an understanding of what you need to do, why, and what's most important, and also where you don't actually have to stress when you get into the mindset of the firms. So we've got a poll that Japheth's going to pop up here. What's up, Japheth? Hi, I also want to say hi to Katie Neff, who's a member of our team. She's going to share with you in just a second. But on here, if you can just tell us who the heck you are, that's helpful for us to kind of speak to the pieces of the process that will affect you or not affect you. So pre-MBA candidate, undergrad, or specialty masters, that includes both freshmen, sophomores, juniors that are in the application process. Seniors, we love you. You may have a full-time opportunity just in time in the spring, but right now most of your recruitment processes are closed or nearly closed. For post MBA candidate, MBAs, PhDs, or other APDs. Um, for y'all, we are kind of getting started into this fall season. The working pros will have these tests in a just-in-time basis. So if you've already applied, you might have already gotten a schedule. We got a couple emails today that was like, we've got it, and midnight tonight's the deadline. And so we'd love to know where you are. And then finally, if you're here from Career Services, welcome very much. And then when you expect to interview, right? So you don't have an interview, you don't have an interview yet, is E. Otherwise, just tell us where you are in the process. So we'll give you 5 more seconds. We've got about 68%. I'd love to get up to 75. So if you can just answer that poll, that'd be helpful for us, and then we'll close it and move on into the session.
Wonderful.
Uh,
All right.
awesome.
Poll is closing.
Thank you. Thanks, Japheth. While we're closing the poll, one thing that you can do is if you are here and you know stuff, or if you are about to know stuff because you're going to go through the process, many of you might have found us initially through our very popular resources like our firm profiles, our firm rankings, or our salary posts, where we basically share the salary data from absolutely everyone everywhere. That comes from y'all. That's because we have built a pay it forward type of community. So if you know something about digital assessments, we're going to put this up at the end of the session again. But if you know something about digital assessments that you want to share with us, you can do it in an anonymous way. And that way we are able to keep this information continually updated going forward. So like I mentioned, a lot of these insights have come from you for you. And so we can keep that party going. That'd be awesome. We've got the poll up, and so let me just share the results for the poll. Great. So, wow, over half of you are in the MBA candidate area for post MBA roles. So, what's up, first year MBAs? Welcome to the party. We're glad to see you. Yeah, PhDs, second year MBAs who are applying right this second. Other APDs, that's great. And then I see a lot of undergrads that are here too. Welcome. Everyone who's here should be what part of our partner perks program, either a black belt, a student partner, or somebody with an all access pass. So we're really excited that y'all are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Katie, let me turn it over to you for a quick intro so people can message you during the sesh if they have personalized questions. And then I'll dive into the agenda for today.
Thanks, Jenny Ray. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This digital assessment piece of the recruitment process is, kind of a zinger sometimes, but the best way to prepare that we've seen, outside of getting some of the inside scoop, is really preparing for the case. So the fundamental concepts still apply. And so it's a piece of your recruitment. We'd love to help you get through the entire piece. I'm a black belt alum myself, spent 3 years at BCG, and I'm grateful to this process. So if you have an interview coming up and you just need to polish or get any final feedback, we offer a 1 hour interview prep. If you have even 2 weeks until your first round, black belt can help you. You can use 6 of those hours before the first round and the rest of those hours before the final round. And if you have maybe a little bit longer of a timeline, maybe a month or more, super prep can really help you get there and use a lot of time with a coach. These all come with the option of getting an editing package as well. We want to help you and find the best fit for you. If you're not sure, you can scan the QR code and book a call with me. You can direct message me here. You can message the entire group because other people probably have the same questions. Or you can scan the QR code and get the package that you know is right for you. So either way, we're glad to have you here, and we're excited to share all of these tips on the digital assessments that we've collected so far. So back to you, Jenny Ray.
Awesome. Everybody, Katie kind of understands the perfection of this blend between a lot of people go through similar processes and there's a lot of cost sharing in the process, but also that you are each completely unique and individual. So like she mentioned during the call today, if you have a like, I've got a me question, this is a great time to do it. Otherwise, you can book a call with Katie. They're pretty scarce. So I'd get on our calendar if you're interested in a program. But again, today is a great time to do that during this call. And we do have a pattern that is incredibly successful, and it's also tailored to every single individual person in a little bit of a different way. So thanks, Katie, for joining today. Let me just walk you through the agenda for today, right? Why do firms use digital assessments? And we're not just talking about this from the outside perspective. The firms actually tell us. They tell us why they use them. They tell us why they care. They tell us why they're making these changes. So we're kind of sharing some of that direct intel. This to me has been some of the most interesting part of the learning process in this year, especially as firms have made pretty dramatic changes in how they use digital assessments. The second one is what skills they test, right? What are they actually testing for? The third is that we'll break down a couple of key tests just to do a little bit of a deeper dive. And then finally, we'll talk about some pro prep tips. And Katie is right. Katie, you said it with such a smile. Like casing is the best way to prepare for digital assessments. But we are finding that people who have prepped the case before you walk into the digital assessment, instead of thinking of it in a linear way, that's like first I build my resume, then I do the digital assessment, and like once you finish your resume, you start prepping for the digital assessment. Once you do that, you start prepping for case. Like the firms are not nice on this process to you. A lot of the people this year, Bain was like, hey, like it's Wednesday. How about Thursday for your interview? Right? Hey, you just dropped your resume yesterday. It was Thursday. Today's Friday. It's the day for your digital assessment. So they don't give you the kindness of giving that time. And so we're finding that a lot of people that are prepared early are able to walk into these knowing that they have the skills and being more calm. And it takes a very little bit of a ramp up of information, which we'll grant you today, but the prep really cannot be condensed. So we'll give you a number of those insights as we go through it. Here's how we're going to handle questions because I know we're going to have a ton. Put them in the chat. Japheth is going to moderate questions both as we go through that are specific to the slides that I'm sharing. And then also we'll moderate a Q&A session at the end that has kind of more general questions about recruiting, et cetera. So pop your questions in as we go through this session. We would love to hear them. First of all, digital assessments have been around for a while, but they are a newish way for firms to do a couple of things. Let me just first share a little bit about the history. For a long time, digital assessments were in testing to do one specific thing, and that was to get rid of round one interviews. Their goal was to move to super day formats, really where super day was just full-time second round interviews. Not anymore. Their newish way of doing this is to change a couple of things about their recruiting process. What they were testing for the last decade, since they've been kind of rolling these out and moving them forward and changing them and using them in different geographies and only for international students and then not for international students, a lot of those changes historically have been to try to test whether a test could proxy who would be successful in the interview. It was not a component of the interview. It was a extrapolated test to see if that test could replace the interview. So they were historically non-evaluative. That's what the firm said. They're non-evaluative. Like we are just testing them. We are trying to figure out when we give you an offer, if you also scored well on the test, and if all of the people that we gave offers to also scored well on the test, or if all of the people that made it into final rounds also scored well on the test. But now there are some differences in the way that they're using the tests, and this informs the way that the tests are, how many people are getting the tests, and more. Number one, it's to reduce bias in recruiting. So some of these tests are used because y'all don't take the same scores. And you also don't go to the same schools and you didn't have the same jobs. So this is kind of one of the equalizer places in the process that can help make your process more anonymous, and actually very specifically can help them identify top talent. The equivalent of this is that they would love to see who is getting a 1600 on this test. They're not scored out of 1600, but the 1600 SAT proxy. This is to try to identify the bias in recruiting for those people away from your experience, right? So raw intellectual horsepower, number one. Number two, to scale recruiting efforts and save costs. So if what I have been doing over the past couple of years since COVID is basically reducing my reliance as a firm on target schools. I don't need target schools anymore if I'm able to standardize this process through a very cost-efficient process. Before, I would have to go to Columbia Business School, my alma mater, and I would need to like throw a party for all 400 people in the incoming class that were interested in going into consulting, and that would be food, and I would have to have people travel there, and a lot of them were in New York, but not everybody, because we actually wanted to hire them from different offices too. So that was hotels and a day out of their life, and then also all the follow-up that comes up with that, right? If I'm just able to be like, look, if you want to apply, apply. Well, I'll figure it out later. I scale back those recruiting efforts. I'm probably still going to do something at Columbia, but it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to be more focused on identifying high potential targets and swiping them from McKinsey or swiping them from another firm versus like trying to get people into the top of the funnel. So that's one of the reasons that they're using them now, and also using them in a different way. Number three, to standardize the candidate evaluation. So this ties into reducing the bias in recruiting, but not just for a reduction of bias, for actually making sure that they have one data point that is equal across all of the folks. This will help them do what they aimed to do before, potentially in the future, which is to eliminate that first round of interview, but it also will help them make sure that the folks that they're getting in the pool are the ones that they're looking for. So essentially, if you come from anywhere, you have a higher chance using these tests to break in than you would otherwise. And then fourth, to test real world firm relevant skills. You'll see some of the tests test different things. They're testing based on what the firms prioritize, but they are trying to get better candidates into the interviews, because even resumes get duds into the first round interview. And they're trying to figure out if they can get fewer duds and more fantastic folks into the first round interview. And actually, what Katie said earlier is really important here, because I want people who are going to succeed in the interview, which probably means that they're going to be good at case, which probably means that being good at case is going to fulfill one of the requirements of success on these tests, right? So a lot of those pieces need to fit together. The main thing that's new this year in 2025 is that everyone gets a test. Before, it was you apply, we review, then we give you tests. And there were a couple of main reasons for that. Number one, it is administratively a burden to send a test to everybody. Number two, some of them are using outsourced platforms that actually charge per test. And so on a per test basis, it is more expensive than if I own the test internally. So it's the equivalent of being like, I will sponsor you to do the GMAT so that I can get a score for the GMAT. It's not quite as expensive as the GMAT, but it is a expensive process. So apply, review, and test. All three of these pieces are important to the firms. In 2025, it's apply, and then you are triggered upon your application with a test score. And this is one of the reasons that we're even doing a digital assessments workshop right now. We've never done one before in the history of all time. We've had guides up on the site, we've had advice through our Black Belt program, but we've never done one of these sessions because the people that got them were the ones who already had interviews. They were non-evaluative, and therefore it was kind of like, do your best, but it's okay if it doesn't go well. Right now, I'll tell you that if you are going to get an interview, otherwise, you will probably still get an interview. The test, you cannot fail. But you can succeed at these tests to qualify yourself for an interview that you otherwise would not have gotten. And that's really why the test has been removed from its former position, moved up into this place, and why it has become so much more important, so much more prevalent, and the firms trust the ability of this test to identify outlier candidates specifically. So firms are using the results mostly right now. And again, this will probably change by 2026, which is why today is the 2025 version of this. They are using them mostly to qualify non-target students. Imagine someone who was at Columbia with me, who had an education background, very little business acumen or skill because of their lack of training, no analytical ability, and it was all missing from the resume. But they could answer these questions with proficiency. I would say, okay, great, we should give them a shot. Like their resume didn't look like it, but this is the type of person that we're very interested in. And there are a couple of things that this helps to tell them. Number one, this is one data point, not the whole story. So assessments are combined with resume strength, networking impact, and interviews. But as of right now, the firms are telling us that they are not a part of a score that adds up to 100%. They are a separate category. What does that mean? It's not 40% of your score is the assessment. It's not like college admissions where a portion of your score are your standardized test scores. It's one holistic score for everything else. And then this is like an X factor opportunity. They are also comparative, not absolute, right? So scores benchmark you against peers, which means that if you are applying in different tranches, you are benchmarked against the peers in that tranche, not necessarily the peers at large. Now, if the firms gather more data over time, they will change the way potentially that they do that. But again, in 2025, a strong result here against your tranche of people that you are applying toward will be very attractive. And they are gatekeepers for interviews. So you will now hear that you got or didn't get an interview without seeing your test score and without knowing whether your test score was what tanked it or cinched it for you. So these results do often determine who advanced to first rounds, especially in the largest applicant pools. There are firms that use assessments that we've identified so far this year, and we have information about these out on our free website. So we talk about each one of them in a article, and then we also have example guides on how to win for a number of them, as well as a few practice tests specifically on our platform that our students and Black Belts have access to. In fact, I'm just going to mention here right now, and I'll talk about it again when we get to the Bain test. This week, we are launching a full Bain test. So you can do a practice test for Bain if you are a Black Belt or an All Access Pass subscriber. So university subscriptions will add that on if that's something that you want for your students. But we will have that as an option inside our paid programs later this week, and you will get an email when that is up and live. Okay. Right now, it is one of the hardest things to find in the world, other than the best pastry in Paris, because there are so many choices. It is the tests that are free and available for you to utilize that are actual great proxies for the test. So you do have access, everyone does, to our free Bain Gorilla Test. You can do that one today. It is a portion of the Bain test, but it is not the full test like the one that you will see in the future. Let's talk a little bit about the skills that the tests are measuring. And then in just a second, I'll stop, Japheth, if you've got some good questions, and we can go to that. So for problem solving and logical thinking, that's the first one, right? One of the things I'm trying to assess is that between choices, you can make sense of which one it fits the scenario more reasonably. What this usually means is that I will give you more than one good choice. I'm not necessarily looking for the right choice or the right only choice, but the best choice. That's what these tests are looking for. That does proxy, unfortunately, the real world. There are no clear answers. The clearer the answers get, the less that consultants are needed. Consulting has grown for all of the last 20 years that we've been tracking it. The revenues for the consulting have grown. And so that they're growing because complexity is growing. Problem solving and logical thinking is one of the first things that you need. Number two, analytical and quantitative reasoning. I need to see that you can do math, and I will test you on your ability to do it. This will not involve anything that is complicated like exponents. This will be speed math, and this will be algebra, and it will be very, very simple. It will not be geometry. It will be applied directly to this experience. So analytical and quantitative reasoning, very similar to what the GMAT focus requires, will be present in the majority of these tests. One of the things that it also does, and they have done since we've seen these released over the last decade, is that they test decision-making under pressure. All of the tests are timed. None of them are you given unlimited time to do. And all of them you can only get a top score on if you complete all of the tasks within the time. And generally, it is complicated to do that. It's not easy. So, one of the things that I am testing for, or candidates that I am trying to eliminate, are those who battle to function with executive presence when they are under pressure. You may be phenomenal, but not being phenomenal under pressure means that you're not going to fit inside my environment. So, decision making under pressure is very critical. And one of the reasons why you don't just need to practice on practice tests, but you also need to practice out loud casing and timed casing drills, because those will help proxy that process of decision making under pressure. Finally, adaptability and learning agility, right? They will test you on things that are not necessarily in a linear way related to what you were required to do. So being adaptable and learning agile is one of the final things that is tested here. Japheth, let me pause here real quickly and see if we have any questions that hopefully I can answer, or at least I can provide resources for that are in the chat that make sense to respond to right now.
You know what? You're sharing so much good information and being so clear that we don't have any questions right now for you to answer. So those will come, but let's just keep on moving.
Awesome. It could be clarity, or it could be complete murkiness, right? So
Maybe confusion. Yeah.
yeah, rampant confusion and clarity can sometimes feel the same in the same experience. Good. Well, let me talk a little bit about some of the specifics of the tests now, and then this might bring up some other questions. Our goal is to really leave you with a very tactical plan for how to succeed. So number one, you will always know that you have a test to do. This is good news. You're never going to kind of like wake up in the morning thinking that you had a case interview scheduled and it's going to be a test, or not knowing that you'll have a test to do. In fact, I would begin to default to the expectation that if you apply somewhere, you will do a test. Right. So, like, schedule a little bit of time. Most of the tests, from what we are hearing, are coming out within days, not weeks. So, in under 7 days after the application, a testing profile is getting triggered, and you will have somewhere between 24 and 48 hours to complete the test. So, like, this is if you're planning to apply and then immediately get on a plane to Bali and be out of, reception for a really long time, not a great plan. So, you're going to want to actually begin to plan your applications differently. There are also two primary kinds of tests that we are seeing. And I think this is important to understand because how you prep will be different for these two tests. The first one is gamification tests. The second type is problem solving tests. So a gamification test is a non-business game. For example, inside the McKinsey Solve, it would be like a garden with a predator, or it would be a lemonade stand where you have to make an operational decision about the lemonade stand, or it would be like a hunting game where you would have to be hunting fish as a fisherman, right? Like these non-business games that test your executive functioning. Really, primarily, McKinsey is assuming that they're already going to have all of the 1,600 score candidates applying. McKinsey is looking to have the people who are not going to cut it in the interviews out at this point, so they can have more valedictorians included in the interviews. But your decision-making speed is paramount in the McKinsey case. And you don't necessarily have to pick the top option. There are many ways to win, right? So there's not one way to win, but a lot of people get frozen inside the McKinsey game trying to figure out how to win specifically. And then therefore they get booted because they didn't complete the process in the right amount of time. Problem-solving games are the more traditional ones. They are more expected. They are used by more of the firms. They are standardized tests that assess a few core things. Number one is the test for business acumen, right? So what is the first thing you'd want to look at if I gave you this business problem? If you were going to calculate an answer to this question, what's one key metric you would want to know along the way? Testing for business acumen is one of the ways that they're trying to test whether something that they don't want to train you in is there for you fundamentally. Second, analytical reasoning, right? I want to understand that if I give you math, you're going to be able to do math. A lot of this job is analytical. It's not mental math, but mental math is a proxy for your desire to do analytical thinking, and also for the humans to run the computers, not vice versa. And then finally, cultural fit. A couple of the tests, like part of the Bain test that is very interesting. We'll give you two answers, both of which could absolutely be appropriate in a business setting. Your knowledge of Bain culture will help inform you to answer those questions. So the more that you network with folks inside the firm, the better you're going to be able to answer what a Bain response to a question would be, or a BCG response would be, not a generic response that's the right or wrong in a clear yes, no question. So examples of problem solving tests include the Bain Gorilla Test, the BCG CCA, and the majority of the other tests. There are a couple of keys to the McKinsey Solve that I want to walk through here. Number one is think, don't memorize. Number two is manage your time. And number three is play the simulation, not the game. So first, let me just highlight the McKinsey Solve is one of the longer games or assessments out of everyone else. You will either get 2 games in 65 minutes or 3 games in 110 minutes. That is predetermined, but it is a little unclear from McKinsey and otherwise why some people are getting 2 and other people are getting 3. It is likely that it is just in testing for McKinsey to see if both of them are equivalent. You are benchmarked against the group that get the same number as you, not the group that gets a different number, right? They're very interactive and gamified. They're simulation based. And so number one key for the McKinsey Solve is that this tests your raw problem solving ability. So taking 10 McKinsey Solve tests will not necessarily make you better at McKinsey Solve. This is also if you only are applying to McKinsey and only have the McKinsey Solve, you can skip the prep for a lot of the GMAT style questions because this does not include those same types of questions. It does not test your business knowledge. It also does not test frameworks or a canned strategy. So your focus here is really on making rapid decisions. You lose at the McKinsey Solve when you are slow at your decision making, when you overanalyze or overprocess or delay decisions. So a decision more rapidly made will succeed in a McKinsey test more than the perfect decision will. Again, you're going to focus on critical thinking. So there will be a couple of pathways to get to the right answer, systems logic, and structured decision making. They are interactive and gamified, but they are not technically adaptive. So what that means is that if you answer with a weird answer at the beginning, then it will take you down a different pathway. But if you are doing really well, it doesn't get harder like the GMAT does, right? And if you're doing really poorly, it doesn't get easier. It just takes you down different pathways. So it's a little bit more of a linear process than some of you may have prepped for recently. Key number two is to manage your time. So the scenarios are complex. They are data heavy. Part of that is the goal. They want to overwhelm you with data to see if all you want to do is go look at the data. And then if you want more data, and if you want more data, and you never actually get to the computation that you need to make rapid decisions with incomplete data, and moving on. So again, finishing the McKinsey Solve is the most important qualifier of success at the McKinsey Solve. And key number three is to play the simulation, not the game. So each of the simulations is unique. And McKinsey tracks not just your answers. It's not you got the right answers, but again, how quickly you went through the decisions, how many decisions you were able to make inside the game. It is much more like a live consulting case, not from the business acumen perspective, but from the decision-making and prioritization aspects of the case. Japheth, did I forget anything there?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Awesome. So, yeah, I will give you some prep tips in a few minutes, but I'll just preview a couple of them here. When you're prepping for the McKinsey Solve, the first thing that you need to do is to prep rapid case discovery. So you need to prep structured drills, how to figure out what a problem is inside a case and how to structure it into the component parts. And you need to prep market sizing cases because in market sizing, you have rapid decision making to populate your structure with data. And so those two kinds of skill builders are really excellent. In addition, you can play simulated games. If McKinsey gives you a link to play one, you should do it. But again, you should do the other work first. And when you're doing the game, you need to pay extra care and attention to the fact that your goal is speed. I also am convinced that practicing Atari would be great for this, but I have no data to prove it. So if you want to have some fun in the process, you can justify a little bit of video gaming just to practice the process for McKinsey. The Bain Gorilla is really interesting, totally different test. Here are a couple of things to expect for this one, right? So number one, expect that they will test you on your core aptitude skills. So it emphasizes problem solving, your ability to rationalize through multiple choice questions, um, numerical reasoning, right? So it is testing your ability to actually calculate a number and get the correct answer, business judgment, and leadership. You have 45 to 50 minutes to answer the Bain Gorilla tests. It is multiple choice questions, and you are scored based on how many of the questions you get correct. You also, excuse me, in the Bain Gorilla test, have to finish the test, right? So you get dinged extra, similar to some tests like the GMAT when you do not respond to some of the questions. So you want to make sure that you do respond to the questions in the Bain Gorilla test. Your focus here is actually accuracy over speed. So the scoring does reward correctness more than rushing. You do not get bonus points for finishing in 15 minutes. So you want to take time to reason through exhibits that they give you, data that they give you, run calculations, even under time pressure, right? And key number three, prep like it's the GMAT and case hybrid. So when you are practicing for this one, you're going to want to practice logical reasoning, so multiple question tests, as well as extrapolation of data from large bodies of data or pieces of data from paragraphs, critical thinking, and business judgment questions. And you can actually use some of the GMAT prep questions along with the questions that we provide for you through the accounts that you have on our site. Familiarity with GMAT style problems and casing really does help here. So you can also use some of the simulations for free or paid for other GMAT style problems. That can be incredibly helpful at prepping for these types of exams. In addition, I would actually recommend that if you're not already a subscriber to our Market Outsiders podcast, and Japheth, if you want to throw a link up to our YouTube channel or to Market Outsiders in the chat, that is one really good way to just start to get some familiarity with business language. We did one today on sports betting, right? We did one last week on why Amazon and Saks would partner up. They are really interesting, very different based on news of the day. They are shallow dives into business and business acumen, and those kinds of business acumen trainings can help. In addition, for Bain, as I mentioned earlier, like you want to network because the questions in their cultural fit sections that are looking for your leadership qualities are going to test you against Bain's standard. If you don't know what that is, you could go read the website, but you're not going to get it. So you're going to really internalize some of that data. Besides, networking is great for you anyhow. But you're going to have a kind of a double whammy in the networking process if you work through it in that way. The BCG CCA is the shortest test, right? So skills interview and problem solving interview options. Some people are getting both. Some people are getting one. They should tell you in the beginning, but it is usually 30 minutes in total. In general, here you're trying to show a key consulting mindset. They're testing structured thinking, creativity, and adaptability, and they're testing your ability to thrive in ambiguity. You are trying to demonstrate collaboration. So some of them are actually group-based. This is the best proxy that we've seen out there right now for CCAs that are working with other people or they're working with simulated other people. Similar to how the group interview for like a little mock mini case competition used to evaluate a lot of folks pre-COVID. How you elevate others also reflects BCG's culture. Like you guys can probably tell, right? But I'm from Bain and Katie's from BCG, and Katie's a lot nicer than I am. So you need to reflect that niceness in your thoughtfulness in the way that you think about the way that you would collaborate or the right answers to some of those skills interview questions. And then finally, staying composed under pressure. The assessment is also timed with real world tasks, and your calm approach will stand out over rushed or scattered responses. So it's better to kind of stick with one line of reasoning, thinking about the BCG CCA versus other choices. There are a couple of logistics that you can also be expected to kind of track with here. So number one is the timing. Usually these are sent to you after applications are submitted, but before your first round interviews. And again, sometimes that means that it will be weighted into your score, but most of the time that means that they want your scores in so they can find the top scores as well as in some cases the weakest scores to either boot you off the island or to make sure that you get the trip to the island. And you're going to get those complete within a set window, right? So 24 to 48 hours. The format is an online at-home assessment. Most of them have unique versions for each of the candidates, but only a few of them are adaptive. What does that mean? It means that earlier when I said, there are like, so for Bain, for example, nobody gets the same Bain test in the same order. They're all different, but they're all pulled from the same bank of questions. And so the Bain test, you couldn't come out of the test having recorded it and tell your friend and have them have the same test. They're going to have a different experience. But for Bain, if you got a question wrong, they're not going to give you a different next question than they would have otherwise. So it's preloaded and pre-expected which ones you're going to get. The accommodations, if you may need them, are things that you can deal with directly with the firm. So ask specifically if you need extra time or adjustments, if you have special circumstances, or if you are a non-native speaker. However, recognize that one of the things that these are testing, no matter what language they are administered in, most of them are administered in English, but not all, they are testing your language fluency. Right. So they're on purpose testing one of the things that you may ask for accommodation for. Just please be aware of that before you reach out to the firms. And then finally, a couple of key tips to keep in mind when you're thinking about prep, right? Number one, no AI or shortcuts. So firms are tracking your process as you go through this entire experience. If you use a cheating tool, you risk instant disqualification because they're testing you on the time and speed of the process. Also, recognize that for things like some of the graphics or the exhibits, if you put the insights into ChatGPT, like we had this issue on a call 2 weeks ago where somebody put a graphic that we had up on the slide in ChatGPT. Well, we intentionally separated some of the data from the slide into a different place. So it might come, for example, in the question. It means that your answer can't be right if you aren't integrating the two pieces together. So they are aware that you're going to try to cheat. They won't let you. If you try to, just like in the interviews, if you try to use AI to cheat, you will get disqualified. You won't get the jobs. Your school will also be kind of upset with you because it will stain the reputation, not just of you, but of your larger community. So you are welcome to use AI to help your practice process if it is additive for you. But this is a rapid thinking game, not a rapid AI game. So just be careful of what you do there. Second, case prep does equal test prep. Our recommended time to start case prepping, for those of you who are here super early, I saw a number of you don't yet have an interview and are planning a long time away. We would recommend 12 weeks as kind of an optimal case prep time. For those who are in your first year MBA, it's a little bit longer just because you're also trying to learn all of business all at once. And so, it's better to kind of pace it out a little bit more so that you have some foundation before you actually get your interviews and you're able to lock in right when you move into the winter break. So case prep equaling test prep is a really essential part of your preparation process. You will be smarter, be a better decision maker, be a clearer thinker and communicator when you have completed a case prep process. And our general recommendation is that when we say that you're ready for a first round interview, that's when you've done 20 or more out loud interviews, with 4 of those with an expert or somebody who is quite advanced in the casing process. In addition, practicing with a timer, simulating test conditions with practice tests. I mean, we think that this is absolutely vital. So again, you could go read a GMAT book and you won't be ready. You could do GMAT questions under pressure, you will be more ready. So pressure and simulating test conditions will help you perform under the pressure of the test. And then finally, that your process is more important than your answers. Showing structured reasoning and clear trade-offs, not just a final choice, especially in the gamified versions. In the key, questions like the Bain Gorilla Test, that will be a little bit less important. It will be important that you get correct answers there. So I'll take a breath. Let me just pause for a second. I know that the chat is wild, totally blowing up. So Japheth, I want to offer anybody who is interested in it again, I'm going to just pop this back up here while we're moving into a time of Q&A. I have one more slide that I'll share kind of at the end of the process, but our digital intel is, comes from you. So if anything that was either wrong on those slides because it changed this weekend and you're hearing something different, like tell us, send us a screenshot of an email that you get from the firms that kind of outlays the process. Like anything that we can do to help you and help our broader community, we're here for it. And with that, we will move into Q&A before we wrap it up.
Love it. Great. Well, we've got some insights coming in, so thank you to the folks who are sharing what they know. Some folks were asking if they can retake the test, if they took it previously, and apparently McKinsey Solve scores remain active for 1 year, and then they kind of go away and you can take the test again. So that's helpful information, and I think we can extrapolate from that probably what Bain and BCG are doing as well. So shout out
the firms are definitely using technology to make themselves smarter about people who try to reapply that defy their intention. Their intention is if you did not succeed this time, they suspect that something will need to change, and it's not just like, oh, I tweaked my resume and practice for 1 more hour, right? It's like something fundamental in your experience or your exposure that will need to change in order to be requalified for an opportunity. And so that year timeline is appropriate for just about every one of the firms for reapplying or retaking this test, which means that if you have 24 hours to prepare, you better use as many of them as you can to prepare. We also should just get a good night's sleep before you do the test. Sometimes you just won't be able to catch up on everything you should have done, and that's fine. Just do your best, see what happens, and then if you get another pass at it, just recognize that will come around in about another year from now.
Yeah. So it's not the end of the world. For McKinsey Solve here, question just disappeared. Extra points for finishing quicker, or better to just focus on the quality of your answers.
Everything that we've heard from McKinsey is you don't get extra points for finishing quickly. McKinsey's really looking at your process. So when the only thing is that if you don't complete all of the steps, then you can't get the maximum score. So it's kind of it hurts you one way, but your goal is to kind of take as long as you need to proficiently respond to the questions. Also in the McKinsey game, I would say if you're not smiling, you're doing something wrong. So you should be having a little bit of fun with the McKinsey games. They're weird and funky. And I actually remember taking a McKinsey game simulation by a professor of ours at Columbia when I was at Columbia that was testing a new version of it out inside the classroom. And it was kind of fun. So don't worry about doing it too quickly. Just worry about your quality decision making within the given amount of time.
Love it. For non-MBB tests, does the preparation change at all?
No. So cases are great across the board. Just depending on what kind of test, I would brush up on the GMAT and the problem solving and the analytical reasoning style, because they are the fundamental skills that are even tested inside the McKinsey Solve too. And it's really similar to the way that we think about case. There is a baseline way to prepare for digital assessments, and then there is a way that you can tweak your understanding right before you take a firm's specific digital assessment. And so your main goal is to be good at these kinds of decision-making tools, but based on your understanding, your business acumen, and your practice. And then at the very end of the process to be okay, now I'm locking in on McKinsey Solve. I'm going to get in the zone of McKinsey Solve and think about that as the last 10 to 20% of your prep process. That's our exact same way that we think about cases too. You prep for cases, you don't prep for McKinsey cases or Bain cases or Deloitte cases. You prep for cases, and then you tweak at the end toward the case specifically.
Love it. Another insight here. Firms no longer reset the tests between internship and full-time recruiting cycles. So, good to know.
That is good to know.
So if you take the test for an internship application, the data stays the same. You don't retake it.
So that kind of underscores something that we've said for a long time, which is the internship is not a free pass. It's not the opportunity to just be like, I'll try it out now and then try hard later. Like the internship is the big dance, right? So like full time is consolation prize, but your big opportunity to succeed is in the internship. And if they're going to lock that score in, y'all do not want to mess it up in that first part of the process.
Great. One question that's a little bit lateral to this. Somebody is working at a boutique firm looking to lateral into MBB. How does the working professional timeline differ from campus?
Great. So the working professional timeline is one of two things. One, when they open jobs and say that they want you, and two, when you network in and they tell you verbally that they would like to have you apply. So the firms will often leave their applications open. If you apply the third way, which is during just a general open application on somebody's website, you basically have to have perfection in your profile in order to get noticed, right? So you need to be like an Olympic athlete that went to Harvard and Wharton for business school, who also worked at a private equity company, like Guggenheim Partners, like a Blackstone, right? Big private equity company, and you need to make sure that you are like dialed in on everything else, plus a perfect score on these assessments. So like if you don't want to place that kind of unrealistic burden on yourself, because I mean, I've met a lot of people in this line of work, but I have not met that person very frequently. You want to make sure that you are networking or you are waiting for a job opportunity to open. The job opportunities most often open whenever they need them. So if they happen to be busy right now, they're going to open up a job application next week. That timing historically has become we call it second season, is a spring season hire, which is when they do a lot of their just-in-time hiring. This is when they try to figure out, based on the people that they already hired, plus the work that they actually have, what kind of pipeline gaps they've got. And the firms are talking about actually cementing in some of those deadlines. So I think we'll expect to see in February and March next year deadlines for a second season that will then start in March or April.
So start networking now.
Yeah, I mean, you've got time if you're thinking about that right now to begin the business acumen, the case process, to like do the networking, to learn about the firms. Katie, I mean, you could probably speak to this, but we have a number of people who are prepping for June 2026 recruiting that are starting now. And we're not activate, we're not saying, hey, like you need to do 4 cases a week. In fact, we're saying like tone it down a little bit on the overall case process, but like break the ice, get yourself warmed up, start to figure out where your core areas are and how far you're going to need to go. And then make a custom plan based on you, not based on the deadline and some other kind of generic version. Katie, you want to weigh in on any extra on that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Jenny Ray, that it's actually advantageous if you have the opportunity to tackle this in like a marathon mentality instead of a sprint. So because this is like a muscle you develop and you'll be more comfortable, and then you also don't have to tackle every piece of this simultaneously. We have the networking, we have the digital assessments, we have the behavioral, and we have the case. So you can take a more paced approach and also really fine tune those gaps, or those blind spots that I like to call them, in your interview prep. Yeah.
That's fun. Jay, is it okay if I put up the slide? These were some of the questions that came in before the session. Are there any others that you want me to weigh in on now from the chat?
Let's go to the pre-submitted, and I'm sure we'll have some more coming into the
Great.
chat.
So if you have more questions and you're live, pop them in the chat. We'd love to respond to them. Let me go through this first. So is there any consideration for those with a different background during interviews? For example, if you are an MD. What's up, MDs? The answer is no. So here's the thing. I'm not looking to see whether or not you can throw the most business jargon at me. A lot of the case process, the case interview process, and by proxy, the digital assessment process is testing a very generic understanding, not a very detailed understanding. So this is not like a second year MBA operations modeling trial. This is like should you have more people in a line or fewer people in a line, right? This is a very simplified version of this kind of business decision making. So you do need to have enough of a business background to address the cases and respond to them. Otherwise, I literally just don't believe you if you say that you want to do this. It's not like I'll figure it out later. You're going to gain a lot more understanding, but you need to have a baseline of it. So no, there is no consideration for you. Yes, they would love to have you. It's because you're smart and analytical thinkers who can pick up anything, but you will have to probably do more work than somebody who is kind of immersed in this in more of their everyday life, either on the job or otherwise. However, you're bringing some really cool advantages to the table because healthcare in the US in particular, but also, a lot of places around the world is basically one of the most messed up industries of all time. There are infinite problems to solve inside it with large lucrative rewards, and therefore healthcare and biosciences consulting is some of the most profitable and fastest growing types of consulting in the US and abroad. Cool. Number two, what sets your application apart from the crowd? The number one thing that sets it apart from the crowd is if you talk to a human beforehand. Talking to a human, networking is like a pre-interview. Gives you the opportunity to meet somebody inside the firm, and they don't walk in with the X factor into your interview, just wondering if you are going to be awesome or not. They know it. You will see and are beginning to see more video interviews at the beginning of the process. Why? Because I'm trying to get a sense of whether or not I feel like I could make a human connection with you. Because if you can do a case, the only other question is, can I make a human connection with you? And so, fundamentally, if we're able to test those in ways other than those that heavily use our own human capital, the better for us. Are the tests similar to entrance exam tests? The answer is yes and no. So they are quite firm specific. They are all different from each other. But yes, one of the similarities is that I am trying to get a unified score between people who have grade inflation, engineering and literature majors, MDs and PhDs and MBAs, right? People that have very different backgrounds. I have no easy way to put them into the same pool of people. And that standardization is one of the ways that they're similar. But otherwise, no. You can learn a lot from practicing some of those tests, but they're not the same. Awesome. Beyond practice problems, what mindset shifts or strategies distinguish top performers in digital assessments? A lot of people are not getting their scores back from the firm, which is hard, right? Because we don't actually know whether you did well. What we know is if you got an interview or not. So we can assume that if you got an interview, you at least didn't fail it. And so what we're hearing back is more of a like what I thought was helpful. This is what I did, and I think it felt like it went pretty well, versus a, like that was a complete mess, and I'm so upset. And like we're getting a lot of like, I don't know, I don't know what you would call them, but like sob stories, but not like over dramatized, just like people that are really upset about how the assessments went, which is one of the genesis reasons why we held this call in the first place. So I would say that one of the main mindset shifts or strategies is number one, a good night's sleep is better than knowledge, right? So like cramming for these is not super effective. So walking in with a clear mental state is super important. For me, that was essential when I took the GMAT before I went to business school. My first time I took the GMAT, I didn't sleep well the night before. The second, I had a young kid at home. I was pregnant with my second child. So I actually like booked a night in a hotel the night before my second GMAT, and I did better on that one. So, those kinds of things can actually help you. If you know you have like a noisy room, a disrupted life, like you might want to actually structure around that and focus on your sleep and your presence inside the interviews more than your knowledge. I also think that one of the things that we're seeing is that people who know that they're ready feel like they're ready. Right. So like if you are panicking about not being ready because you never thought about practicing for a digital assessment, you found out you got one and you have 24 hours, then it's really hard to feel like you did the work that you could have done. Right. So again, I do not think that there are more than like 6 weeks of pre-work for this, that over a period of time you couldn't do a couple of questions to like shake out the cobwebs and build up the skills, but you do need some prep time. And the more that you have, the more people walk into the interview knowing it. Same with case interviews, right? If you did your first case interview yesterday and your next one is today, you just don't feel like you're ready for the case interview. Why? Because you're probably not. And so if you put in the work and you kind of let the chips fall where they might fall, then you're gonna have a lot more fun. You're gonna be a lot more present inside that process. What practice platform do we recommend? I don't know. Do you guys think we should build one? I don't think like we haven't found one. We would license one. We would review one if we felt like there was one that would actually help to prep you. We're pretty focused on giving you exactly what you're going to get inside the interview. So, but like we are working right now on the Bain Gorilla Test. We can build that one. We've been working on that one for the last couple of weeks. We will release that one. We will continue to work on some of the other ones, but like, if you all feel like you need prep and practice, like we're putting together courses. If you know what you need or what you think would be helpful, if you tried something and it worked or didn't work, like those are pieces of the assessment process that you could definitely weigh in on, and we'd love to help you build it. Anybody who, by the way, does something really additive like that, like if you're like, hey, this is what I'd love to have you build, or I can help you build it, like we will give you free access or free coaching. Like we help you out if you do something that we had not thought of before, and you help us out in the process. Um, Next one, if I cannot pass these digital tests, what is another way I could get into an MBB firm? I don't know. They're making it really hard. Again, like if you can't pass it, like beware just even the way you're thinking about it, because like I mentioned for Bain, what Bain said was basically like with the challenges that we're having with DEI recruiting and the large number of applications that we have coming in, what we're doing is we're like, here's our target pool, and then out of the non-target pool, who are the like Mensa smart people that we would have missed if we hadn't had this test. So they're kind of qualifying people into the process using the test. So if you can't pass the digital test, you need a great resume and all the things that you've always had to do, right? Awesome networking, a great resume, like a good pedigree from a target school. You need a new program potentially. You need a friend to refer you, like, and you need a prep. Like you have to, but this is just a really small piece of the process. It's bigger than it ever was before, but it's still really small. And then how far in advance should we start prepping for the test? So I already answered that one. Right. So I said 6 weeks is ideal. So for those of you that have tests tonight, good luck. We hope this is still helpful. For any of you who have, more than 6 weeks, you'll want to build a little bit of this prep into your process. But if you haven't started yet and you're not planning to apply for another couple of months, just do our case prep plan. We have a phenomenal, very detailed case prep plan that will get you through the first round if you do every single thing on there, including some expert interviews. Don't have to be with us, can be with us, but don't have to be with us, can be with just somebody inside your network. Once again, if you all want to work with us to help in the process, Katie can guide you through where you are and where you want to go. We would love to help you. I'm happy to do anything we can to support you in the process. And we're just excited that y'all are here in this moment. So it's hard to keep it in mind, but it is an honor to even go through the process with some of these firms. And there's a lot of self-learning that happens along the way. Any final questions, Japheth, before we sign off?
There was, but I accidentally answered them all. So
Okay, awesome. Good. Well, thank you all. We appreciate you. Please stay tuned for the next Partner Perks call. We're so excited to be a part of your journey. And if you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, Jenny Ray LaRue is my name. I'm just a quick LinkedIn message away if you have some specific questions. But overall, we are just right in the middle of it, just like you are. We're excited to be a part of the support process, and I'll see a number of you in our Black Belt welcome call. Black Belt closes tomorrow night at midnight, and our Black Belt welcome call is on Wednesday. So I'll look forward to seeing you there. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Good luck.
thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.